Tabernacle and the Law of Moses. When the Israelites had come out of Egypt and arrived at Mount Sinai, God gave Moses various laws. First, God presented the 10 Commandments, and he spoke the words of these commandments with his own voice. At the sound of this, the Israelites trembled with fear. When the people saw the thunder and lightning and heard the trumpet and saw the mountain in smoke, they trembled with fear. They stayed at a distance and said to Moses, "Speak to us yourself and we will listen, but do not have God speak to us or we will die." Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid. God has come to test you, so that the fear of God will be with you to keep you from sinning." When the Israelites heard the voice of God directly, they were afraid. But now God promised them the Messiah, who would be a prophet born among them as Moses was. "The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your fellow Israelites. You must listen to him. For this is what you asked of the Lord your God at Horeb on the day of the assembly, when you said, 'Let us not hear the voice of the Lord our God, nor see this great fire anymore, or we will die.' The Lord said to me, 'What they say is good. I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their fellow Israelites, and I will put my words in his mouth. He will tell them everything I command him. I myself will call to account anyone who does not listen to my words that the prophet speaks in my name." Of all the passages regarding the law in the Bible, the most important describes the tabernacle that the Israelites built in the wilderness. The latter part of the book of Exodus provides details of the pattern of the tabernacle and its contents, even including the clothes to be worn by the priests. There is also a detailed description of how the Israelites made all these items. Then, in the book of Leviticus, the kinds of sacrifices and how they were to be carried out are explained in great detail. Through the sacrificial laws, the blood of the covenant is broken down and explained in concrete terms. It is explained how the animals were to be slaughtered and sacrificed as burnt offerings, and how the grain was to be offered for the grain offering. The fellowship offering, the sin offering, the guilt offering, and other offerings are also introduced with their specific purposes. In the case of the burnt offering, grain and wine were offered along with the sacrifice. The sacrificial offerings designated in the law in this way symbolize, one by one, the suffering and sacrifice of the Messiah. The burnt offerings, fellowship offerings, sin offerings, and so on, reminiscent of the garments of skin and Abel's offering of a lamb, involved slaughtering an animal and burning it with fire, showing us in advance what the Messiah would have to undergo when he appeared in Israel, suffered, and shed his blood. Also, these sacrifices were accompanied by the offering of grains, which revealed in advance the body of the Messiah that was to be put to death, and the offering of wine, which told in advance of the blood of the promise that he was to shed for the sins of the Israelites and all the people in this world. Such sacrifices were offered up at the bronze altar of burnt offering located at the east end of the tabernacle. Then, when you passed from the altar of burnt offering and proceeded towards the west where the sun rises, you came to the holy place, the whole interior of which glittered with gold. Even just considering this procedure in the tabernacle, we can see that the order was set for glory to be attained by passing through suffering. And this is a reference to the sequence of events through which the Messiah was to pass. The message of redemption that began with the reference to the offspring of the woman and the garments of skin was hidden deep down within the law. The Israelites took the tabernacle with them as they moved from place to place in the wilderness for 40 years, pitching their camp with the tabernacle at the center. Moses and Aaron, the high priest, constantly taught them the law, and the will of God was revealed to the people as they carried out all the required ceremonies centered on the tabernacle. On the outside, the tabernacle looked like a tent and was not a particularly impressive structure. It was located in the court, which was surrounded by a fence of fine linen curtains, and it had a covering made of a type of durable leather. The inside, however, was a different matter altogether. All the walls were overlaid with gold. The ceiling was covered with a curtain made of fine linen woven with blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, and embroidered with designs of cherubim, and all the utensils inside the tabernacle were made of, or overlaid with, pure gold. Behind the veil beyond the holy place, there was the Ark of the Covenant, and above it, the atonement cover. The atonement cover was the place where God spoke to Israel. There, above the cover, between the two cherubim that are over the Ark of the Covenant law, I will meet with you and give you all my commands for the Israelites. The ark that housed the tablets of stone on which the 10 Commandments were written was also made of acacia wood, but it was overlaid inside and out with pure gold, and the atonement cover, which had the role of covering the ark, was made of pure gold. Why was the outside of the tabernacle so shabby, while everything inside was made of glittering gold? It is God who designated the structure of the tabernacle. This was the design of the one who saw all things from the beginning and looked ahead to the distant future. This image of the tabernacle is directly related to the work of salvation that God was intending to carry out. And through such connections, we are able to sense the power of the Bible. Wouldn't it be confusing if the tabernacle were talking about something completely different? There were leather coverings on the outside of the tabernacle that were nothing like the splendor of the Egyptian palace. Yet, inside, there was the Ark of God, and everything was made of gold and illuminated by the lampstand, testifying of God who is the light. The outside of the tabernacle presents an image of an ordinary person, but the inside reveals the Messiah who was filled with the Spirit of God and had no association at all with sin. Through the tabernacle, we come to think about the inner nature of the Messiah whom God would present to the world. The most holy place, which symbolizes the throne of God, was hidden behind the veil and could only be reached through the holy place. On just one day in the year, the 10th day of the 7th month, which is the Day of Atonement, the high priest alone was permitted to enter the most holy place, taking with him incense and blood. Anyone else entering there at any time would die, since this was the most holy place. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell your brother Aaron that he is not to come whenever he chooses into the most holy place behind the curtain, in front of the atonement cover on the ark, or else he will die. For I will appear in the cloud over the atonement cover. He shall then slaughter the goat for the sin offering for the people, and take its blood behind the curtain, and do with it as he did with the bull's blood. He shall sprinkle it on the atonement cover and in front of it. The high priest was not to enter the most holy place without the blood of a sacrificial animal. The only way it is possible for a sinner to go before God is through the sacrifice. In other words, the blood that God has designated. As a result of Adam's sin, a barrier arose, blocking the way between God and man. God loves man and wants to embrace him, but the phenomenon referred to as sin is blocking the way. God is righteous and cannot just leave sin there as it is and forgive man unconditionally. If God were to forgive sin without demanding the price to be paid for it, that would mean that he accepted sin. God is not like that. On the other hand, because of Adam's sin, man is destined to pay the price for sin. But man's body and blood are full of the nature of sin and cannot be offered to God to pay that price. For this reason, everyone needs a sacrifice that can be offered to God on their behalf. Through the history of Israel recorded in the Bible and the law that was introduced within that history, again and again we find images of the blood of an animal being offered to God. Yet these are merely shadows of the true sacrifice that would be accomplished. Ultimately, they were not able to wash away the sin and completely restore the relationship between man and God. The veil between the holy place and the most holy place indicates that man cannot go empty-handed before the throne of God in heaven. The formality of the law that demands that the high priest was to take blood and proceed into the most holy place behind the veil showed in advance that someday the Messiah would offer his own blood to God, thus opening the way for sinners to be able to go confidently before God. So, through the structure and materials used for the tabernacle and the detailed points of the laws appertaining to it, we can look ahead to the inner nature of the Messiah, who was both God and man, and to the work of salvation that he would carry out. The opening of the veil that concealed the most holy place signifies the guarantee of the path to heaven for sinners. Herein lies the reason that the Messiah had to be born in human form within the history of mankind. It was because his blood was needed, and because his blood being offered to God as the price of sin made redemption from sin complete. And when Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, the rocks split,